It's time to wander the world with Sharon. Enjoy this Big Blend radio podcast featuring award-winning travel writer and photographer Sharon K. Kurtz. Well, everybody, welcome back to Wander the World with Sharon. And Sharon just came back from Japan, so wait for next month because she's going to tell us all about her. What's it, 3 weeks that you were in Japan?
4 weeks.
4 weeks, a month in Japan, and she
Yes.
just explored everything. And you got to see the cherry blossoms, and amazing, right?
It was incredible.
Well,
I have a
today,
lot
though,
to
we're going to
share.
talk. Yeah, we can't wait because there's just that. I know you're going to probably write a gazillion articles, right, all over.
Yes.
A lot to write, but we're going to talk about Galveston, Texas, not far from you, where you are in Austin, right? It's what, maybe
That's
a
right.
couple, 2, 3
Like
hours,
4 hours.
4 hours, nice. So a perfect beach getaway.
Yes.
All right. So Galveston, everyone, is quite an interesting in history, in all kinds of things. Yet it's still a beach paradise for a lot of people that I know. I have friends in Louisiana that go to Galveston just to go to the beach, but it has had some history and is still, when you're a port city, I think that's when all kinds of stuff happens, right?
Oh man, it is a fascinating place. It's an island, Galveston Island. And
That's right. Because the last time we went, yeah, it is.
there's
Yeah.
a big causeway around it. So that's why it has such an interesting history. The Spanish, it was a Spanish colony, or not a colony. It was first explored by the Spanish in 1500s. Then it played an important part in the Texas Revolution, and it's named after Bernardo de Galvez, the Spanish governor of Louisiana. His name is Galveston, but it was in the 1800s, and he never came here. It's just called Galveston.
And going back to the Spanish, so Texas had the very first travel writer of Texas is Cabeza de Vaca. And he came over, he sailed his ship there, and I think it was like 200 or 600 of them they wrecked, and they were crawling through the desert of Texas. And they died. And he wrote a journal about all of this. And I went to Galveston just to go see his little plaque. But the history is fascinating, how he survived, but they're from Spain, and there you go. So he is known as the first travel writer of Texas.
Oh, well, I did not know that. But I also learned about Galveston when I went to Fredericksburg, because the German immigrants immigrated to Galveston and then stuck there. And someone took off on a road trip and found Fredericksburg, 4 hours away. Back then, it was probably took weeks, but brought them up. And that's why there's this German heritage in Fredericksburg, because that was the port they entered.
Oh, wow. And you got to think their road trip was like a horse road trip.
Oh, just imagine.
My gosh.
When you said crawl through the desert, it was kind of like that. People perished trying to make that journey from Galveston to Fredericksburg.
Yeah, I just interviewed a lady for her novel, and her novel is set in Bandera, which is in the Texas Hill Country. And she talked about how they came over, and then a lot of the men, the immigrants, ended up going to wars, and the women are sitting in the middle of, Texas Hill Country, trying to raise their family, not really with any money. And at the same time, there were also Indian uprisings. So these people went through a lot coming over.
Well, one reason why Galveston is so fascinating is the history. It was called the Wall Street of the South. It was the wealthiest city in Texas and the biggest port in the United States, because they grew cotton and they had trade. So Galveston was very important in our nation's history. But then they suffered so many natural disasters. They had a giant fire in the 1800s, 1885, that destroyed like 40 acres and all the wooden buildings. They had to come back from that. And then the Great Storm of 1900. That is the biggest natural disaster in history, U.S. history.
Wow. Well, I think we've had, I don't know about even now, even all the recent storms.
Yes. Even now, 6,000 to 8,000 people perished in that storm.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot.
6 to 8,000 that they most of them they never found.
Mm.
So it was the hurricane and then flooding. So
Oh.
one interesting thing is what we love is the Strand. It's the historic area down by the harbor in Galveston with still the old Victorian buildings from the day. And the storm came in from the north and it pushed all of the debris and the trees and the buildings, everything until it had like a barrier, an artificial
Mhm.
barrier, and the storm surge couldn't cross it. So that's why we still have these historic buildings down in the Strand.
Wow. Wow. So, okay, so all these historic buildings, but obviously storms and history
Yeah.
and being a port, like so much is going on. So you could probably write stories from the people
Oh, yeah.
perspective for years. In fact, I know another historic novel, The Ice Merchant, I think it was called. Paul de Boer, D and then Boer, I think is, ooh, I don't want to get it wrong, but he wrote, it was based in Galveston and it was about, there was about saving ice and how it had to do with the port. And so, and there was some ghost stuff going on, supernatural history, same as the
Yeah.
one in Bandera,
Yeah.
that book.
Oh,
So,
it is haunted. The whole city is haunted.
did you get haunted when you went there?
You know what? We stayed in this historic, they have a couple different hotels that are just really nice, beautiful hotels, but ours was the Tremont House, and it is down in the historic area, and it is haunted. My room, I tell you, I don't know, I had some strange feeling in the middle of the night because all of those people that perished, some of their souls are still wandering around Galveston, and ship captains and slaves, and
Wow.
it's a
That's
haunted place.
yet a very popular, let's go to the beach and have fun, like the pier area. Isn't that a real popular,
Oh,
with
yeah.
rides and all
Historic
of that?
pier it's kind of behind my head.
Yeah.
We go. That is the pier. And it's fun. It's got rides. And so you have the beautiful beaches, and they have festivals. It's such a tourism town. Now they have these wonderful festivals. One is called Dickens on the Strand, which happens in December when it's Victorian Christmas. So everyone dresses
Oh,
up
wow.
Victorian costumes and wanders on the streets and has wassail and all kinds of things.
Oh,
And
wow. So
the Mardi Gras is big there. They have a Mardi Gras in February.
oh, cool. Cool. Well, speaking of also the history and events, Juneteenth is also a big thing there,
That
isn't
is
it? Isn't
right. Well, Galveston is famous. Juneteenth started in Galveston because um, the emancipation happened a couple years earlier, and somehow the news didn't get down to Galveston until 1865. Or, there's an alternate version. There were slave owners and wealthy planters. Maybe they just didn't want to tell the slaves that they were free.
oh.
So there's some stuff there, but they have this wonderful mural called Absolute Equality Mural. It's
Mm.
hand done on this whole side of a building, and it tells the history of Juneteenth. And they celebrated June 19th in a very big way.
Oh, that is cool. I mean, it's now I would think that they do some kind of haunted thing for Halloween time frame. They've got to have some kind of ghost walks
They
and
probably do. Ghost tours are very big in Galveston.
okay, so they have them all the time then.
Yeah, yeah, all the time.
Well, that's cool too. And it also looked like that you went to an opera house, and so that's a neat thing for people to know of.
Yeah, so
Some
down in the
culture there.
Strand, they still have all these historic, wonderful old Victorian buildings. And they have this little street called Post Office Street because
Oh,
post office was on that street. And the historic opera house from the 1800s, it did not get destroyed in the flood, in the great storm of 1900. So it's still, you still go to live performances, and
mhm.
it is beautifully done. And we went to one. We went to see Alice in Wonderland. It was kind of
Mm,
like a dance performance, like modern dance with some very interesting costumes, but it was live. I love live theater of any sort.
hmm.
It's fun.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So you've got culture there. right?
Yes.
You've got all these different events and happenings historically, like we talked about Juneteenth, right? You've got haunted history. You've got these historic happenings that weren't so cool with, hurricanes and storms and stuff. But then what about the maritime history with this being a port? Because, like you were saying, this was a main port back in the day, but then wasn't it also like now it's really popular for cruise lines? I know that. But were you able to like see, do they have like any museums or anything for maritime history?
Yeah, right down on the harbor, they have the Texas Seaport Museum. And right next to it is the tall ship Elissa from 1877. That is
Oh,
authentic. It's it's, it's so big. It's right on the harbor next to the museum. And what's fun about that is it's manned by volunteers, but every April it still sails. It goes out in the Gulf, and visitors can
wow.
book tickets for like 2 weeks. I think it's maybe 2 or 3 hours at a time, maybe two a day. And I couldn't book it this year, but I want
Mm,
to next year. Just imagine raising the sails and going out on a historic tall ship like that.
I would love that. I
I
would love
know.
that.
It is it's from 1877, and it's really cool. But the museum, one of the best things about going down there to the port is they have this interactive museum called the Ship to Shore exhibit. So it's interactive. So you enter and you're acting as if you are going to immigrate to the US on that ship, and how you live,
Oh,
and what you have to take your own food. Back in the day, there was hardly any food unless you supplied your own. And you get to sign up and you can say, okay, I'm a young girl and I'm going to be a nanny, and no one is here with me. And you get to pretend you're her and then watch how she fared on the journey all the way to the end. Did she make it? Did she not? What happened to her in
wow.
the end? Or say you're an older woman and you've got 3 kids and your husband's already here, and you have to feed them and keep them alive until you make it. So it's fascinating.
Oh, wow. And then when you get there, you're like, okay, now what? Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
hmm
you might be like the German immigrants, well, what do we do now? Or your friend, or,
now you got to go to
it's,
Fredericksburg and all of
yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's a whole, so it never really ends. But through all this history, the architecture from your photos looks absolutely gorgeous. All the
it
Victorian
is.
homes
Yeah.
and I remember going there and like we went to see this plaque and we were on our way somewhere and I couldn't like really spend time, but it just looked so charming, kind of, Port Aransas was like that a little bit too, but that was more, that was, that they're different, but they do have that history
Yeah, well,
of,
you're right there on the water. You feel the ocean breeze. You
mm,
see the cruise ships. I mean, the Strand is literally, the ships are just right next to the street.
mm. Oh, that's nice. Did you get an ice cream cone on the beach? Because I feel like that it
I
would
did
be
not,
fun.
but I did go to the pleasure pier and I rode the roller coaster.
Ooh, ooh,
I
that
love
not
roller
okay.
coasters.
That's cool. So the roller coaster, right? Now, did you see
Yes.
any, is there nature out there? I
From
always want to know.
On the day we went, it was a little bit rainy, and you're right, the pleasure pier just goes right out into the water. So there's beautiful seabirds flying all around. But I
Oh,
did not see any dolphins or fish up from the roller coaster. I did not see.
oh, that's cool. But hey, but it is beautiful. Now, what about food? I can imagine
Oh
seafood
my
is a
gosh.
big deal.
Yes, fresh seafood right from the Gulf. Uh, some of the best places we loved, there's one's called Katie's Seafood on the Harbor, and right outside their back windows are the boats that go out to catch the red snapper and the shrimp and everything that you're eating. And Redondo's is right there it's Italian, but it's in an old bank building that has been refreshed, and you can actually have dinner right in the vault, and that's kind of
Mm.
right there in the historic area. But they're known for seafood, fresh oysters on the half shell, and red snapper, and Texas
Ooh,
fish.
ooh, this is cool. This is fun. So a lot of good food, huh? Good
Yeah, a lot of
food.
good food.
And then the bed and breakfast. Do they have, for families? Do they have like motels, hotels, that kind of thing for
Yes,
families?
but the big family place is Moody Gardens. Moody
Oh,
Gardens is the place with the big pyramids. They're kind of
okay.
famous. If you see an image of these glass-shaped pyramids, everyone knows it's Moody Gardens. So that's a very influential, rich family from Texas, and they've kind of built that up and to be a aquarium and a Texas Discovery Museum, and you can stay
Oh,
there. So it's a whole complex for the family.
it's like a Disneyland
Yeah,
of
kind of.
Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's neat. So Moody Gardens, everyone, that's something because we know families are out, right now doing, they're really planning to go out and do you know, road tripping is big. We
Yes.
know that. You're going to be on our road trip show soon. That's going to
Yeah,
be
I
fun.
can't wait.
You
Well, at
know.
Moody Gardens, one thing we did is they have this wonderful aquarium. It is just
Mm.
fabulous. And we got a private audience with Marley, the penguin. Marley,
Oh.
the northern rockhopper penguin. He's from South America, and he came. There's like 8 journalists all in a row sitting around, and he came waddling in, and he actually likes people. So he one by one he let us pet him, and his fur is like soft, and I
Oh,
never touched a penguin before, and
no.
mind.
Wow. So does it feel feathery? It doesn't
It
it
doesn't feel
looks
feathery because the featheries are kind of slick and they're close to his body.
mm.
But he was molting a little bit, so he looked like he was having a bad hair day. He was really soft, and then there are little tufts of hair like on his head and all around. But they molt and lose their feathers and get new shiny ones, new soft ones.
Need new shiny ones for my
Yeah.
head. But so a lot to explore. I'm looking at all your notes and articles, and everyone, I want you to know that you can go to visitgalveston.com. That link is in the episode, as well as an article that Sharon wrote for shebuystravel.com, and it's all about things to do in Galveston. So, when we look at summer road tripping, that's, I think, you live in Texas, and isn't it surprising? I know it's a huge state, but this is not the Texas that people would think of if they've never been to Texas. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
like people might have in Japan. I was with people from Australia and New Zealand, and they thought of um, Texas as being like the show Dallas from like 30 years ago, or cowboys running around. So yeah, people don't quite understand that it is a big place, and there's so many different types of
Mm.
terrain, and so they would be surprised about Galveston, I'm sure.
Yeah, and then you got Houston so close, right? And that's the
Yes.
other thing. And when you're in Galveston, like if you're based out of Houston, you can go to Big Thicket National Preserve, which isn't
Uh-huh.
far from there, and Galveston out there. So, and it's close to Louisiana. That's why I said a lot of my friends from Louisiana come over.
Yes. Well, in my article that I wrote for She Buys Travel, I give 3 places that you can visit close to Galveston. And one is the NASA Space Center in
Oh
Houston.
yeah.
That is a great place to visit. And then come on to Galveston.
Yeah, and then, go see Sharon in Austin.
Yeah, not so far.
Yeah, I see, but that's like a perfect road trip for you guys. Like, from Austin, go to
Yes.
the beach, not far at all. And it feels like it's far enough, it's far enough to be a trip,
Yes.
yet not too far away,
Well,
you know.
talking about history, there's one thing I forgot to mention.
Mm.
The Moody, no, no, the Grand Galvez Historic Hotel. It is
Oh,
the big pink building.
oh, I think I saw it. Oh,
Yes,
yes, yes.
and from 1911, it was built right after the big hurricane when Galveston was trying to rebuild and they wanted to show the world that they're back. And whoever watches the 1923 show about the beginnings of Yellowstone, it's on
Oh, okay.
a series. Well, Spencer, he's one of the grandsons who has to make his way back to Montana to save the family ranch. He
Oh,
he comes through Galveston, and actually we went to the hotel and saw the movie set. And so if you watch 1923, you will see the Grand Galvez just as it was back then, and with Spencer entering and making a telegraph to his family. And it's pretty wild to see the movie, and then see the Grand Galveston. But they have the best
Mm.
Sunday brunch. It's worth it alone to go to Galveston, stay over on a Sunday, and go to the Sunday brunch, which is, there is so much food and choice. You could eat for like, I don't know, 3 weeks, and you'd never make it around to every table.
Oh,
It's
wow.
really
Now,
wonderful.
do they have champagne? We want the mimosas.
Yes. And
Give me
crab
the real
claws,
thing.
like a table,
Oh,
as big as is piled high with crab claws, and just, it's pretty amazing.
wow. So you had a good time
I
in your
did.
backyard.
I well,
You've been doing really some good adventures out of Austin since you moved there,
yes.
adventuring Austin, Fredericksburg, Port Aransas, and now Galveston. So this is pretty cool. And a little bit
Yeah,
of
I
Houston.
really, I had recommended to everyone, shake things up. Midway in your life, move somewhere else. And you're amazing that you look around and you think, I didn't know this was here. And you have new experiences, and it's really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I cannot wait. And I know our audience is going to be excited to hear about your adventures in Japan. I don't know quite what we're going to be talking about in Japan because you've got so much. It may be a long episode, because you
Yeah,
really did a lot in Japan.
I
So,
did.
yeah, a month. And it looked, following you on social media. And I encourage everyone to keep up with Sharon on Instagram and Facebook. You do a lot showing, you put up awesome reels of what's going on. So, I love following you on there. So I
Thank
was
you.
every time I was like, she's back. She's doing good. You know, yeah. Where's Sharon today? Where's Sharon? Not Waldo. Where's Sharon
Yeah.
today? But looking forward to that. And I know before we talk next time, you're off to Mexico and then San
Yes.
Francisco. Yeah.
And then Alaska cruise.
Oh, that's right. Woo. She ain't slowing down. That's for sure. Good for you. I love it. Well, everyone, keep up with Sharon. Go to SharonKKurtz.com. She's also got articles on blendradioandtv.com and nationalparktraveling.com. And we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Always good to keep up with you, Lisa. Thanks.
You too. Take care. Thanks for joining us here on Big Blend Radio's Wonder the World with Sharon podcast. You can keep up with Sharon's adventures at SharonKKurtz.com. Follow Big Blend Radio at BigBlendRadio.com. Happy travels.